Okay, good morning. Yeah, we'll get started. Are there any questions? Yeah, about the tutorial yesterday about the copying incidents. I received some mails from a few students, and there are few students who are yet to write to me. So I'm going to give them a little bit more time for them to write to me. So the students are required to write to me before 1 o'clock today, 1 p.m. today. Otherwise, we'll take whatever the necessary action that's required. There are still some students whom we have found that they have indulged in copying, but they are not written to me yet. Okay. So I suggest that the students write to me so that we don't refer to the DISCO immediately. Okay. After the discussion with the students, I will take whatever the action is required. If they don't respond, then we'll try to refer them to the committee for the necessary action. Okay. I mean, I don't want to start the day with these unpleasant matters, but I think copying is simply not acceptable. Okay, because I'm giving you the chance to refer to your notes or my notes or the recordings of lectures. It's more or less like an open book exercise, right? Then why do you want to still copy from others is not clear to me. Okay, so those who are intelligent copying, I'm giving the last chance to write to me before 1 o'clock today. Okay, then depending on what they write, then I'll see what has to be done. If they don't write to me, then we'll take whatever is the action that's required. Okay, minimum is they'll get 0 marks for this assignment, for this tutorial. Okay. Yeah, let's get started on the discussion that we were having yesterday. So we started the discussion on the design of a circuit for the floating point addition and subtraction, where you have the numbers, real value numbers represented in the exponent matrix of form, and we've seen it for the decimal numbers, but similar discussion holds good for the binary representations also. So yesterday we've seen the need for doing the alignment of the matrices by making the exponents of both the numbers the same. Then we can add the aligned matrices or subtract the aligned matrices. Whether the matrices are to be added or subtracted is decided by several factors to be taken into consideration. As we discussed yesterday, it depends on the relative values of the exponents of the two numbers. It also depends on the signs of the two numbers, and it depends on whether you want to perform the addition operation or the subtraction operation of these numbers. So all these four factors decide what will be the sign of the result, and also whether the matrices have to be added or subtracted after alignment, that is after making the corresponding exponents equal. Okay, so we need to come up with a circuit which does all these operations on the floating point representations of the real value, right? And so the major steps in this circuit that we need to design are the comparison of the exponents. Thus, we need to determine whether xe is greater than ye or xe is less than ye. We'll consider the case of xe not equal to ye separately. Okay, so right now we are assuming that xe is not equal to ye. Then once we determine whether xe is greater than ye or xe is less than ye, then we need to shift the matrix of the number with the smaller exponent to the right by the number of bits equal to the absolute difference between the exponents of the two numbers, that is xe minus ye and its absolute value. Okay, And once we shift this mantissa of the number with smaller exponent, then this shifted mantissa has to be either added to the mantissa of the number with this greater exponent, or we may have to subtract. So that mantissa addition or subtraction is decided by these signs of the two numbers, that is xs and ys, and whether we want to perform the addition or subtraction operation on the numbers, that is on x and y, and what is the relation between the exponents, that is xe and y. That is basically whether x is greater than magnitude than y, or x is less in magnitude than y. Okay, and one more step that we will be required to do is what is called the normalization of the result, because finally to represent the result in the floating point standard, it has to be in the normal form, which means that there should be a single one to the left of the binary point. Just to see why the result that we get may not be normalized, we'll take a few examples to get an idea about what is happening, and then what is it involved in doing the normalization. Okay, so let's say after doing the alignment of the mantissas, that is after making the exponents the same for the two operands x and y, right? Let's say the aligned mantissas are as given here, that is 1.101, all zeros. Then y is 0.011, followed by all zeros, and the mantissas are aligned now because the exponents are the same. Now, if we want to add these two numbers x and y, we need to add the two mantissas after the alignment. Now you can see that when I add these two mantissas after the alignment, the result that we get is actually 10.000. That is, we have 1.101 plus 0.011, and when we add these two aligned mantissas, right, we'll get 10.000. So obviously this is not in the normalized form, because in the normalized form, to the left of the binary point, I should have a single one, but that's not the case here. And in order to bring it to the normalized form, right, we need to shift the binary point to the left by 1 bit, right, and accordingly adjust the exponent. So the result value in the normalized form will be 1.0 multiplied by 2 power 6. So this we need to find out after we get the result of addition of the mantissas, right? And then we need to determine that the result is not normalized, and then in this case we have to shift the binary point to the left by 1 bit and increase the exponent by 1. And this is the only case that can happen when we add the two numbers and add the two mantissas, and the result goes to 10 point something. Actually, the bits after the mantissa need not be all zeros; they can be some ones also there, right? But if the result goes to 10, right, then the normalization has to be done, right? The other case will not occur, that is 1.11 point something, because the mantissas that we are adding are less than 2 and less than 1, right? That is the first mantissa, that is let's say in this case x, right, will be in magnitude less than 2, whereas the mantissa after the alignment will be less than 1. Okay, so the sum of these two mantissas will never go beyond 3, which will be less than 3. So it's guaranteed that to the left of the binary point will have only either 1 or 10, right, whenever we add these mantissas. Okay, whenever it is a 10, then we need to do the normalization and adjust the exponent. And if you look at the other case where I have x as 1.0 multiplied by 2 power 5, and y after the mantissa alignment, right, is 0.011, then if we subtract these mantissas, right, then what is going to happen? You can see that we are going to get 0.101, and again the result here is not a normalized form, right? So in this case, we need to shift the binary point to the right by 1 bit, right? And after doing that operation, we'll get 1.01 here, and we have to decrease the exponent by 1 because we shifted the binary point to the right by 1 bit, right? So in this case, the normalization of the result involves shifting the binary point to the right and then decreasing the exponent. But how many bits we have to do the shifting and by what value we have to decrease the exponent depends on where the first one is present in the result that we get after we subtract the matrices, right? So in this case, it so happens that the first one is present to the right of the binary point immediately. Okay. If you take another example, let's say x is 1.0, then y is 0.111, and again if the matrices are subtracted, right, then we see that the result that we get is actually 0.001, and here the normalization involves shifting the binary point to the right by 3 bits. So how do we determine this? We need to check from the left, right, in which bit position the first one is present, because the binary point has to be shifted to the right of that first one. Okay, at a later point we'll be looking at a circuit, right, which can detect this position of the first one in the result that we get, right? And once we get that position of the first one in the result, right, then we need to shift the binary point by the number of bits equal to the or related to that position, right? And in this case, it is 3 here, right? So we are shifting the binary point to the right by 3 bits, and accordingly decreasing the exponent also by value of 3, right? So basically, the result normalization will involve finding out where the first one is present in the resultant mantissa, right? And then shifting the binary point accordingly, and then adjusting the exponent. Okay. So basically, we need to come up with a circuit which can do all these operations automatically, right? Obviously, we cannot do it manually, right? And interestingly, we'll be seeing that all these operations can be realized using the combinational logic circuits that we are already familiar with, right? We need to pay a little bit of attention to which circuit can help us to do this operation. Okay. Yeah. Are there any questions about this? I want you to be clear about the operations to be carried out when we want to add or subtract two real numbers which are represented in the floating point format. Okay, because now we are going to discuss the circuit which can perform these operations. Okay, so basically I want you to understand that these are the 4 steps that we need to carry out, and we need to come up with the logic to perform each of these steps here, right? And the result that we get after we perform the additional subtraction of the matrices needs to be normalized, right? And we need to come up with the circuit to perform that operation as well. Yeah. Are there any questions about that? Is it clear about the operations that need to be done? How it has to be done, we'll see, right? At least I want you to be clear about what kind of steps are required to be taken, right, to perform the floating point addition subtraction. Actually, now the number of steps that we need to carry out and the kind of steps that we need to carry out indicate, right, how complex is this operation called the floating point addition or the subtraction. That also will give an indication that the time taken to this perform the floating point addition or subtraction is going to be much higher than the simple integer addition or subtraction that we have done earlier, right? That's why the floating point operations are much more complex than the integer arithmetic operations, at least for the addition subtraction. Okay, we'll come back to the multiplication later. Okay, I see that there are no questions here. Now let's get started with design of a circuit to implement each of the steps here. What is the first step here? We need to compare the two exponents, right? And then determine whether xc is greater than ye or xc is less than y. How can we do this? Which circuit can be used to perform this operation? The circuit that you are familiar with. So I want to determine whether xc is greater than y or xc is less than y. Okay, I'm sure you know the answer. So basically, before I just go into details, I just want you to get the input and output specifications of this circuit, right? So we are designing the floating point adder subtractor, which will take two operands, x and y. Then z will be either x plus y or x minus y. And each of these x and y has the sign bit, then the mantissa fraction, and the biased exponent. So the values are given by -1 to the power sign. Then please remember that there is a hidden 1 here. So that needs to be also taken into consideration. So it's 1.xm. That is the complete mantissa. And then 2 power xc minus bias. Bias is in this case where n equal to 32 is 127, right? So that gives the value of x, and similarly we get the value of y. But we are going to take the representation of the operands in terms of the sign, then the mantissa fraction, and the biased exponent. Then we perform the necessary operations. Okay. So the inputs to the circuit are going to be 32-bit representations of x and y, which is the single precision floating point representation. That is 1 bit for the sign, 8 bits for the biased exponent, and 23 bits for the mantissa fraction. Then we have one control signal here to indicate whether you want to add these two numbers or you want to subtract the second number from the first number, right? So this is what we call it as the add a bar slash s signal. If it is 0, then it indicates that the addition operation has to be carried out. That is, z is equal to x plus y. If it is 1, it indicates that we have to perform subtraction operation of x minus y. And the result has to be put in the floating point standard with 1 bit for the sign, then 8 bits for the biased exponent of z, right? And then 23 bits for the mantissa fraction, excluding the 1 to the left of the binary point. And we discuss the case for the xc not equal to ye, because for xc equal to ye, the circuit is going to be different. We'll discuss that later. Okay. Okay. First, let's see how to get the relation between xc and y. So one way of doing it is we can design a subtractive circuit, right, which will take the two exponents and then perform the subtraction operation on the two exponents. It can be similar to the adder circuit. You can design a ripple carry subtractor where the basic module will be a full subtractor. Full subtractor is analogous to the full adder. What is the full adder trying to do? It takes the 2 bits of the operand, right, in a particular position, and then it will take the carry into that position, and then it will generate the sum bit and the carry into the next bit, right? In the same way, the full subtractor will take 2 bits of the operands, that is bits in the particular position. Then there will be a borrow input from the next bit. Then the result will be the difference bit and the borrow into the next bit position. That is whether it's required to borrow a 1 from the next bit position is another output of the full subtractor circuit. Again, I'm not discussing the details here. You can find it in any book, right? So it will be analogous to the full bit adder, right? We'll have the full bit subtractor, and then we can stack such full bit subtractors to build the ripple carry or ripple borrow subtractor. And like what we talked about carry look ahead adder, we can also talk about the borrow look ahead subtractor, where we can generate this borrow bits, right, ahead of their coming from the previous stages. So please refer to any textbook on digital logic or even the book by Hemashar and the Computer Organization, right? You'll find the details of how to design the subtractor using the full adder, full subtractors, right? And also extending this carry look ahead concept to the borrow look ahead circuits. Okay, so it will be analogous to the carry look ahead based adder, right? But here we'll be interested in the subtract operation. So when you perform the subtraction operation, the B8 bit, because here the exponents are all 8 bits long, and please remember that these are all biased exponents, right? And when we subtract ye from xe, right, the borrow bit out of the most significant bit, right, will be, yeah, what will be the B8 bit here indicating, right? So when do you borrow 1 from the next bit position? I mean, maybe if it's not clear to you, right? Suppose I have a bit 1 here and bit 0 here, right? So this is the xi bit and this is yi bit, right? What will be the difference between the xi and yi? It will be 1, right? And is there a borrow from the next bit position here? So this is the difference bit, right? And there will be a borrow bit, right? So in this case, the borrow bit is 0 because we are not borrowing anything from the next bit position. Instead of this, if xi is 0 and if yi is 1, right? Then how do we perform this subtraction? I need to borrow 1 from the next bit position, right? And then it will be 1 0 minus 1, right? So then the difference is 1, right? So in this case, the borrow from the next bit position is 1, right? And the difference is 1, right? And this we do it for every bit position and then build the circuit for the subtraction, right? So now what I want to tell me is when will be the B8 bit be 1? What is the B8 bit we are talking about? If I take the operands here, right? Let's say I call them as x7, x6, so on, x0, then y7, y6, y0. I mean, I'm talking about the exponent bits, right? So when you perform the subtraction on this, when will be the B8 bit be 0 and when will it be 1? Now, please remember that we are dealing with the unsigned integers, right? So when will the borrow bit will be 0? Yeah. So the borrow bit will be 0 when, I mean, obviously you have two cases, when xe is greater than ye or when xe is less than y. Yeah, when both xe and y are positive values or the unsigned values, right? And when you perform subtraction of ye from xe, when will the borrow bit, right, B8 will be 0 and when will be 1? Yeah, I'm waiting for the answer. You want some example? Okay. Let's say this bias exponent is, I'll give it in decimal values. Let's say the bias exponents are 135 and 129, right? When you subtract 129 from 135, will there be any borrow from the B8 position? Here xe is greater than y, right? So do you have to borrow a bit from the B8 position here? You can easily verify that there is no need for that, right? And if it is the other way, that is xe is 129 and y is 135, right? Obviously, we have to borrow a 1 from the most significant bit position, right? Or into the most significant bit position, right? Then only we can perform the subtraction, right? You can go back and verify this, right? So basically, what does this indicate? B8 will be 0, right? If xe is greater than ye, and it will be 1 if xe is less than y. Okay. So now we are going to make use of this information. That is, we give xe and ye as inputs to this 8-bit subtractor, right? And then this B8 bit indicates whether xe is less than ye. If that bit is 0, right, then it indicates that xe is greater than ye. If that bit is 1, it indicates that xe is less than y. We need this information because we need to determine which matrix has to be shifted, and also we need to determine by what number of bits this matrix has to be shifted so that they are aligned after making the corresponding exponents the same. Okay, yeah. Now, for a given pair of operands, we cannot know a priori whether x is greater than y or x is less than y, right? So, in order to get the absolute difference, we perform the subtraction operation in parallel, right? So, the first subtractor here performs xc minus ye, and the second subtractor performs ye minus xc, right? And we get the value of that, right? And only one of this is going to be positive, right? And that is the value that we need to take because that's what we are interested in, because we are interested in the absolute difference between xe and ye. So now we have these two entities. First entity is xe minus ye and the other entity is ye minus xe, and we need to select only one of them, right, depending on whether xe is less than ye or xe is greater than y, right? If xe is greater than ye, right, we need to take the output of the first subtractor, right? That's why we are marking it as, right, the 0 input of this multiplexer, right? That is, when this select line is 0, when will the select line be 0? Xe less than ye is 0, which means that xe is greater than ye, right? Then we take the difference of xe minus ye. And if xe less than ye is 1, right, then we take the output of the second subtractor here, because in that case, xe is less than ye or ye is greater than xe, right? And that value will be positive, right? And that value will be passed on as the output of the multiplexer when the select line is 1, right? So basically, we use an 8-bit 2-to-1 multiplexer, right, to give us the absolute difference between the exponents of the two numbers. Let's call it as k, right? And this difference can be again 8 bits because in the extreme case, right, I can have the difference between xe and ye, absolute difference, to be anywhere between, yeah, what is the smallest value for the absolute difference of the exponents? It can be 0, and the largest can be 254 minus 1. We are talking about the normal numbers, right? So it can be 253. So it requires 8 bits to represent this absolute difference. Okay. Yeah. Any questions about this? Yeah. Right. So now we have two entities here. One is this entity called xe less than y, which gives the relation between the two exponents, and the other one is the k, which is the absolute difference between the two exponents. Now we are going to make use of these two entities to design the circuit to perform the alignment of the mantisas, right? And what is it that we need to do now? Depending on whether xe is greater than ye or xe is less than ye, we need to shift one of these mantisas to the right by certain number of bits. That number of bits is given by this absolute difference between the exponents. That's what is indicated by k. Okay. So how do you know which mantissa should not be shifted and which mantissa has to be shifted? Right? Which mantissa will not be shifted? Mantissa corresponding to the number with the larger exponent. Right? So first we need to get that mantissa. So again, we use a mux here, right, which will take the two mantissas. Please remember that we are putting the 1.xm. That is, we are also considering the hidden bit, right? And we are taking all the bits, the mantissa fraction, right? All of that put together will be the mantissa of the x. And similarly, 1 followed by ym is the mantissa for the second operand y, right? So these are 24-bit entities. So we need to pass on one of these two mantisas directly to the mantissa adder subtractor circuit, right? So again, we make use of this xc less than y signal, right, to determine which one will be passed on. Again, if this bit is 0, it indicates that xc is greater than ye, right? In that case, we need to pass on this 1.xm as input to the mantissa adder subtractor directly, right? If that is 1, right, then 1.ym will be passed on, because in that case xc is less than y, which means that y is greater than xc. So the mantissa of the y will be passed on as input to the mantissa adder subtractor. And what has to be done with the second mantissa, which is not being passed on here? Okay. So now we can see that the inputs to this second multiplexer here are in the different order, right? So for 0 input of the multiplexer, we give 1.ym, and for the 1 input of the multiplexer, we give 1.xm, so that what we get as output of the multiplexer is the mantissa of the operand with the smaller exponent, right? So basically, we are making use of the existing circuits that we are familiar with, right, to get the mantissa of the larger number and pass it on directly to the mantissa adder subtractor. And then we are getting the mantissa of the operand with a smaller exponent, right, on which we need to perform the shift operation, right? And we'll quickly see how to perform that shift operation. Okay. Now, this mantissa of the operand with the smaller exponent, which is 24 bits long, right, will be given as input to a block called the mantissa shifter, right? And the input to the other input to the mantissa shifter is the value of this k, right, which indicates by how many bits we need to shift this mantissa, right? And we need to accordingly shift this mantissa by so many number of bits, and that shifted mantissa will be the output of this mantissa shifter, and that will go as the second input for the 24-bit mantissa adder subtractor circuit. Okay. So now we need to design this circuit called the mantissa shifter, right, which will take this 24-bit mantissa as the input, right, and then it will also take the number of bits by which it has to be shifted as the other input, and then generate a shifted mantissa as the output. Okay. Yeah. Now I want to tell me which of the circuits that you are familiar with can be used to perform this mantissa shifting operation. One of the circuits that we already discussed and which you also have implemented in the lab exercises, right, can perform this shift operation, right? I want you to think about it a little bit and then tell. Which are the circuits that we have discussed earlier in the course can be used to perform this shift operation? Please remember that we are talking about a spatial shift. Yeah. Any clues? Any answers? Yeah, once I give the answer, you find that it's so simple. I'm just giving the clue that we have to perform a spatial shift operation. Okay, let me give you one more clue. Suppose I have 4 bits, right? Let's say I indicate these bits as some M3, M2, M1, and M0. And each of these bits can take values 0 or 1, right? Yeah. Now I want to take these 4 bits as the input to a circuit, which we call it as the shifter. right? Now I want the output to be a shifted version of this. What do you mean by a shifted version of this? Let's say this is something like 1011. What do we want to do? We want to shift these bits to the right by some number of bits, right? Suppose I want to shift this bit sequence to the right by 1 bit, right? What is the output that I should get? So it will be 101. So this 1 in the least significant bit will go, right? Then we'll shift 0 into the most significant bit. So you can see that 0101, right, is obtained by performing a right shift operation on the input by 1 bit, right? So this is for the case where we are shifting by 1 bit. Suppose you want to perform shift operation by 2 bits. What it will get? We'll get 1 0 here, right, and then 0 0, right? So similarly, if you want to do the shift operation by 3 bits, right, it will be 0 0 0 1, right? And if you don't want to shift by any bits, right, then you want to pass this, right? Yeah. Now I want you to tell me which circuit that you are familiar with can be used to generate these different outputs depending on the number of bits to be shifted and by making use of this input bit sequence. Yeah, any answers? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I don't want to trouble you more. Okay. Can you use a multiplexer to do this? Right? Suppose I have a 4-bit 2 to 1 multiplexer, right? Which will have 2 select lines. And these 2 select lines, let's say, are used to indicate number of bits by which the input has to be shifted. Right? What does that mean? If the select lines are 0 0, then there is no shifting. If this select line combination is 0 1, I need to shift the input by 1 bit. If it's 1 0, then I have to shift the inputs by 2 bits and so on. All right? Yeah. Now I just want you to tell me what should be these inputs to the 0 1 2 3 of this multiplexer. Please remember that each of them is a 4-bit input. Right? Yeah. There are some answers here. Similar to multiply circuit. I don't know what you mean by multiply circuit with shift. You cannot use the pair. You don't need the pair encoder for this. Yeah, pair encoder does a different operation, right? Yeah. Okay. So now I want you to just tell me what will be the 4-bit input that will give for each of these input 0, 1, 2, and 3 of the multiplexer. So it's obvious that the 0th input will be M3, M2, M1, M0. right? What will be the input 1? Because when the number of bits to be shifted is 1, what should be available at the output of the shifter? It is the input that shifted to the right by 1 bit, right? So it will be M3, M2, and M1 here, right? Then we'll shift 0 here, right? And if the number of bits to be shifted is 2 bits, right, it will be M3 here, M2 here, right, and it will be 0, 0, right? And in the final case where the number of bits to be shifted is 3 bits, right, it will be 0, 0, 0, M3, right? Please note that it doesn't matter what value this M bits take, right? I'm going to get this M3, M2, M1, M0 as the input to the circuit, right? And accordingly, we are going to take the corresponding bits from the input, right? And we form these inputs to the multiplexer. And based on what values are given as select line inputs, right, the corresponding bit combination will be made available at the output of the multiplexer, right? So this is what is called a combinational shifter. Later point we'll be seeing in the course that one can use a sequential circuit to perform the shifting operation, but that's much slower, right? So what you're talking about is a multiplexer based shifter circuit, right, which is called as the combinational shifter. Right, and it's also referred to as what is called the barrel shifter. Basically, you can see that, right? If you look at this bit sequence that goes as input, right? It's like a barrel, right? That's the reason why it's called as the barrel shifter. So basically, I want you to note that one can use a multiplexer circuit, right, to perform this spatial shifting, right, by certain number of bits that is specified as the select line inputs of the multiplexer. Okay, yeah, this is in general to design a combination shifter circuit, right? Now I want you to tell me with this background, right, what circuit is required to perform this Mantissa shifter, right? So now I want you to tell me what will be the specification of this Mantissa shifter. I want to take a minute to think about that. You can tell me simplest way of designing the circuit. That circuit will not be efficient, right? But that's fine with me initially. Yeah. A 256 to 1 multiplexer. That's the answer given by Veda. Okay, good. And what is the other specification? You also have to give the width of the data lines. When you say 256 to 1 multiplexer, right, you're only telling how many input sources are there. Right? Yeah. Good. So Vedanta says that, right, it can be a 24-bit 256 to 1 multiplexer. Right? Okay. Technically, that's correct. But knowing the complexity of the multiplexer logic, now I want you to tell me how feasible is this to implement this circuit. Yeah. Yeah, just 1 minute. Hello. Ah. Last one. Okay. Hello, one ನಿಮಿಷ. Yeah, I'm sorry. There was a phone call I had to take. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back. Yeah. So one naive way of designing this Mantis shifter is as a 24-bit 256 to 1 multiplexer, but it become very complex in logic, right? And if you pay a little bit of attention, you will see that no, it's not necessary to use such a big multiplexer. Okay. Yeah. I want to give a clue that we're performing the shift operation only on a 24-bit entity, right? And of course, this k value can take anywhere from 0 to 253, right? But what will happen if this k is greater than 24 bits? If k is greater than 24, what will be the resultant shifted mantissa? See, the input to the mantissa shifter is some 24-bit sequence, right? Now, if the value of this k is greater than 24, what is the result of performing the shift operation on that? Okay, again, let's go back to this example. If I have only this 4-bit sequence, if I say that I want to shift by more than 4 bits, right, what will be the resultant entity? You can easily check that the output will be always 0, right? Let's say I use a 4-bit 8 to 1 mux here, and then I have 3 shift bits, 3 select bits here, where these 3 select bits indicate the number of bits by which I want to perform shift operation. If that select bit combination is value greater than 4, right, then we are performing the shift right operation by 4 bits to the right, and if anything more than 4 bits, right, then we are only shifting the zeros, right? Then all the 4 output bits of the multiplexer will be zeros, right? So I want you to note that for any value k greater than 24, in this case, right, the output of this mantissa shifter will be all zeros, right? And we can take that factor into consideration, right? So basically, what I want you to note is that I think I'll just close it quickly, right? Yeah, what I want you to tell me is that this Mantissa shifter will generate an output of all zeros if k is greater than 24, or to make it simpler, right? If it is k is greater than or equal to 32, right? And if it's less than this, then we perform the necessary shift operations, right? So basically, we'll use this barrel shifter right, which will take only 5 bits of this k, that is k4 to 0. Then it will take the input mantissa, that is 24 bits. Then it will perform the shift operation, right? Then it will also generate 24 bits, right? Then we'll use another multiplexer, which is a simple multiplexer. Which will have all the inputs as 0, right? So now I want you to tell me what will be the select line for this 2-to-1 multiplexer. So when should the output of this multiplexer be all zeros? When k is greater than 32, right? So when k is less than 32, we'll perform shift operation using that multiplexer that we'll see, right? And then get the shifted version of that, right? So how do we indicate this select line of this 2-to-1 multiplexer now? When k is greater than 32, greater than or equal to 32. How do we know whether the k is greater than or equal to 32 or not? Right? We can use the higher order bits. That is, we take k7, k6, and k5. If any of these bits is 1, right, then we know that the k value is greater than 32 or greater than or equal to 32, right? And in that case, I need to only pass an output of all zeros, right? And so now this k7 or k6 or k5 will form as the select line of the second multiplexer here. And this barrel shifter is a 24-bit 32 to 1, right? So we can see that this circuit is much less in complexity than a 24-bit 256 to 1 multiplexer, right? So basically, we make a note of that all values of k greater than 32 will result in shifted mantissa, which is all zeros, right? So we design the mantissa shifter circuit by using a smaller multiplexer, right? And of course, followed by that with another 2-to-1 multiplexer, right? So whole of this put together will form the mantissa shifter, which will take the k value and then generate the shifted mantissa that will go as input to the mantissa adder subtractive circuit. Okay, so maybe I'll stop at this point. Please go through this part, right? And then we'll continue the discussion and then design the rest of the circuit to perform this floating point addition subtraction. Okay, yeah. Are there any questions? Okay. Before you come to the next class, I just want you to think about what circuit can be used to perform this result normalization, where we need to determine the position of the first one from the left. That is, if I have some sequence of bits, I want to know the position of the first one from the left. Which one of the circuits that we are already familiar with can be used to find the position of the first one in the given bit sequence, right? we are going to make use of that in the result normalization circuit. Okay, yeah, I'll stop at this point. If there are no questions, then we'll close this session.